Hello everybody, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. So, I know I said I was taking a break, but I just wanted to do the July wrap up first because I read loads of books in July, and if I waited until after my break, it was gonna be like a massive July wrap up and then an August wrap up. Stress. Just film your July wrap up and then take your break and then come back for the August. That makes sense to me. It's leaving less on hold and makes me feel a bit better. So let's get into this wrap up because there are loads of books I read in July. So in July I read a total of 11 books, which I am really chuffed with. I'm very, very proud of that. If you've been around this channel, you'll know that my average is about 4 books a month, 1 a week-ish. And so 11 in July, super happy with that. For the reading rush, I read 7 books in a week. Who am I? I don't know. But let's get into these books because there's a lot and I might have to split this video in 2 anyway, and oh my god, I'm stressful thinking about it. The first book I read in July was Mockingjay by Suzanne. This was to wrap up my Hunger Games reread in time for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So obviously I read Hunger Games and Catching Fire in June. And let me just say, the Hunger Games trilogy, it is as good as it ever was. This series, it got big, right? And it inspired this dystopian craze and everyone somehow got burnt out from it, even though there was only like a couple of really popular dystopians at the time. And apparently now everyone's bored of it because, you know, you can't have more than two popular franchises in one genre, am I right? That makes no sense to me. But this series, there's a reason that it got big and it's so solid, it's so good. This really does stand the test of time. All the right themes, great writing, great characters, it's so imaginative, it's so dark, it's got everything. Brilliant today as it was then. I'm really happy I managed to get a reread in and finish a Mockingjay in July. That's the one thing that annoys me, is like that dystopian craze. In 2012 when the Hunger Games was like peak, and now it's like we're in 2020 and everyone's like they're burnt out from dystopian, because we had like what, 2 popular dystopians? Hunger Games and Divergent, which, I mean come on. There's 100 sci-fis, there's 100 fantasies, there's 100 contemporaries. Why can we have loads of rom-coms? Why can we have loads of sci-fis, but having more than a couple of dystopian movies is too much? It doesn't really make sense to me. If a dystopian story is good, it's a good dystopian story. People are weird. I get it if that's not your favourite genre, but why is everyone so like determined to hate dystopian? I don't really know, and I will never know. Anyway, let's talk about what I read next. Talking of sequels, the next book I read in July was A Gathering of Shadows by Schwab. Oh my god, I love this woman. So this was fantastic. As a sequel goes, magnificent. It took what the first one did and just it elevated. It did not disappoint. It built and it got larger and better, and I'm fascinated by V.E. Schwab and her writing and her worlds and her characters. I don't want to talk about this in too much detail because I find this one such a mysterious trilogy. It's one of those ones where you should just go into. I didn't know anything about it going in, and I think that's the best way. So I'm going to put a little spoiler thing up here and a time skip that you can jump to if you haven't read this series, and I highly recommend skipping this part of the video. But if you have read this series, let me talk about it. So from the first book, we've got Kel and we've got Lila, and they've been through this adventure, and Lila's discovering magic and this stone of magic from Black London, and getting to see this magical world and the politics and the way the magic system works and the characterization. And that first book was great. And then this one, we get Lila running off to be a pirate. We've got great new characters like Olcard. I really find him very interesting in so many facets of his personality. Then we also have Kel and Rye coming into a new phase of their relationship because of the bond between them, and I find that very interesting. How Rye is just becoming this leader that we didn't expect. Him with his languages, and even though he can't do magic, he's got other skills, and the way he kind of encourages Kel into the competition. Things are just evolving. You can really feel a sense of Kel being trapped. Lila's just being, come on Lila, there's nothing wrong with having friends, okay? It's not a weakness. But the Essence arc, so this competition, the elemental games in Red London, it really had this atmosphere. It was so, this world is so rich and developed, and it just feels real to me. I love the setting of the games and the different players. We have Lila who has magic, what? And we have Kel with a secret name and the initials KL. They have to stand for something, and I want to know what. I'm sure in the third book that is going to come up. It has to. She's dropped too many things about his initials being the only thing he knew about himself before the palace. So really interesting. Then you've got the black magic, who first got his claws in that first book, and now in this second one, Red London doesn't trust Kel anymore, and you've got that black magic working behind the scenes and coming back in the end. Oh, the ending, I could feel the pain. It was so visceral and painful and exciting, and the climax, the way it all built up, Kel being imprisoned by the king and his distrust, and then them going to break him out, but he's already gone, and it built, and the collar, oh, I love this book, I love this series, and I cannot wait for the third one. The third book is a tome, and I hope to read it in August. In fact, I've started it, spoiler alert. Me and Matthew have buddy read this, and we'll buddy read the next. I love this series, I love talking about it with Matthew, and I cannot wait to read the next one. So the first two were very sequel heavy, and then the third book I read was a complete standalone, which was nice. And for the third book I read Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. Now this one's an interesting one. There seems to be a lot of mermaid books floating around now, so I'm getting to some of them now. I'm working my way around, and this was one that I was intrigued to get to. So before I talk about this one, I just want to preface it with, it was okay. It was a good read, I enjoyed it. It wasn't magnificent, it wasn't stunning, but it was okay. And there's nothing wrong with okay. Okay is fine. If I were to rate it, not that I really do that, I'd give it like a 3-star. I will talk about a lot of the positives of this book, but just know that it wasn't anything like super special. Like, it was a fun read, and if it sounds intriguing to you, I definitely recommend going and checking it out. I feel like I always talk about all books with the same tone sometimes. I just wanted to have that tonal variety, that even though I'm talking positively about this book, the overall effect was alright. So this book is based off of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. I'm definitely saying it's based off of Hans Christian Andersen instead of the obvious Disney Little Mermaid, because in tone and theme and vibe, it's definitely more in Hans Christian Andersen land than it is anything else, which honestly is better. This book is about a trio of friends. We have Evie, we have Anna, and we have Nicholas, and 3 of them are best childhood friends. One day Evie and Anna are at the beach, and they decide to have a race into the surf, but the current that day is stronger than they thought, and the current takes Anna into the depths and kills her. Evie manages to be saved by Nicholas, but they did lose Anna that day, and obviously that is heartbreaking. They grow up with this grief that they lost their best friend. Evie's got a lot of guilt that she wasn't the one to die and Evie was, and Nicholas that he could only save one. There's a lot of guilt and grief as these two grow up without their third friend. That's not a spoiler, by the way, that's literally, you know, the inciting incident of the book, so don't worry. So these two are best friends, although they shouldn't really be according to society, because he's a prince and she's a poor peasant. So the queen is not happy about this, neither are the nobles or any of the townsfolk. Like, they really don't think that these two should be hanging out. And then one day, a mysterious girl who looks the exact doppelganger of Anna appears at the beach, and there's a lot riding on all of them to get what they want and to get over the trauma of the past. And the big question is this girl Anna? Has she been resurrected from the depths? Is she like a reincarnation? Is she the spirit of Anna? Is she just a lookalike? Who is this girl, and what is her motivation? During the book you kind of have to discover it, and there's a lot of red herrings. That's funny, I'll tell you why later. There's a lot of misdirection, and trying to find out who Anna is and what her true motivation is the question of the book. And once it starts to become clear which one of these options it is, the stakes get higher and higher, and you could probably guess the mystery early on if you were so inclined, if you're one of those people. I mean, it's not too difficult to figure out, but that doesn't lessen the enjoyment. I don't think. It's still dropping breadcrumbs and you're going, okay, I see that she's probably going to be this, or is she this, or no, okay, she was that. The book definitely does improve as it goes on. The climax gets really interesting. The main thing I liked about this book was the tone. So this is set in a Scandinavian-esque place. I'm not exactly sure where it's set. I think it was a fictional place, but wherever it's set, it's like a Norway, Sweden, Finland-esque place. That's why I'm saying Scandinavian. Obviously culture in all of those places is probably completely different and varied from country to country, but overall it is just very Scandinavian as a whole. So I will be generalizing in that aspect because I don't know specifically, and I don't think this book specifies specifically what country it takes place in, so that's kind of up to your own imagination where you think it takes place in. And if you are a Scandinavian, like maybe maybe you can tell me, okay, it feels more like Finland to me. Either way, I love that setting. One of my favourite things about this book was the culture and setting. The way the world is set up, the beach, the political system, the food they eat, the festivals they take part in, the gods they believe in. I don't know, just the entire cultural aspect of this book was really, really good. It's like I could taste the salty fish and I could hear the folklore and the music of these festivals, and it felt like a real Scandinavian place. Even though I've never been to Scandinavia, I really love that setting, and I love a book that can transport you to another country or another culture. I always find that really, really interesting, whether it's a real culture or not. Again, I don't know specifically what culture it's referring to, but I love the Scandinavian vibe, and obviously Hans Christian Andersen, that's why I'm saying it's definitely a Hans Christian Andersen inspired, because Hans Christian Andersen is... Where is Hans Christian Andersen from? Oh god, my brain has blanked. I'll put it down here. If it's going to be set anywhere, that's probably where it's supposed to be inspired by. The other thing about this book is it is a dark, twisted fairy tale. It is not the Little Mermaid Disney edition. It is definitely a twisted, dark story. It's like a dark fairy tale, and honestly, that's the best descriptor of this book. It really has that vibe and that feeling of a fairy tale with sinister themes and plots. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect. I just liked the vibe, and I think that was probably the best thing about this book. The characters were okay, the plot was okay, but the setting, there was something beautiful and magical in that. So that was my favourite part about the book. If you think that sounds interesting, I mean, go for it. I enjoyed it. I feel like last night when I pretended to go to sleep, I mentally ran through my head what I was going to say in this video, and it's all not come out how I imagined it. Why does that always happen? It's like I mentally rehearse what I'm going to say, and then it never comes out as good as I mentally rehearsed. I get annoyed at myself that I've done it wrong, but I'm too hot to refilm it, so that ain't gonna happen. So Sea Witch was the last book I read before the reading rush, and so this next section is reading rush. So if you watch those vlogs, you'll know what these are, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail about them. If you haven't watched the reading vlogs, please go check them out. I'd love for you to go see the real me, my life. It was a real deep dive look into my personal life, and it felt personal to me. It felt very up close. You were in my house, you know, and there's something strange about sharing something quite personal. It would make us closer. I don't know, it felt quite vulnerable, so I'd like it to have paid off. It took a lot of work, those vlogs, far more than I was expecting. Even if you just go to this second vlog and check out the last 5 minutes, I made this little graphic ending where I went through all the books I read, the page count in this lovely little graphic slideshow. Even if you don't want to watch the whole vlog, just go to part 2 and the last 5 minutes and watch that little graphic, and then you can see what I read in order and everything. I think that's really fun. If you can't spare 20 minutes, you could probably spare 5. Is my camera not focusing right today? It doesn't look like it's focusing very well. If not, I couldn't give a rat's ass. You'll just have to have blurry me. In fact, it's probably better on your eyes. So the first book I read during the reading rush was a ballad. No, I always do that. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, and if you'll have watched that vlog, you may know I really, really enjoyed this book. I had no idea what I was expecting. I was just kind of going in, low expectations. I didn't want to be disappointed. I've been burned before. I'm looking at you, Mind Jack, reopening. Locked or broken open, I can't remember your names, I don't even care. My brain is going to the Mind Jack trilogy. A perfect, amazing, beautiful trilogy that they tried to recontinue and completely ruined it. They don't exist. They're cursed child worthy, that's what I'm trying to say. So that doesn't exist. Anyway, tangent. So I went in with low expectations, didn't want to be disappointed, so whatever it was going to be, it was going to be, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked the political aspect. I liked learning about how the games came to be. If you don't know, this is set during the 10th Hunger Games, following Coriolanus Snow, aka President Snow, back when he was mentoring a girl for the 10th Hunger Games, and back then they were still pretty fresh from the war, so the capital remembers the war, and a lot of them, even in the capital, were badly affected. There's still parts of the city that are blown up. There's still a lot of families going through hard times. Obviously not nearly as bad as the district, but it was interesting to see how the capital was affected by the dark days from a capital's point of view, so that was very interesting. I really enjoyed learning about how the Hunger Games came to be, because during this book they're kind of discovering how to turn this punishment to the districts into an event, something people will want to watch, something that can stick around for years to come. All sorts of things like the mentors, the sponsorships, the host, the televising it, the better cameras, mutts, so many things introduced during this Hunger Games, and by the time Katniss rocks around, this is how we know it came to be. So there was a lot of fan service. It was fun to see the building blocks of the Hunger Games and how it evolved and became what we know it to be, which I found really interesting and fun to play with. I thought the plot, a lot of it I didn't see coming, especially the last third. I like seeing the rawness. It was obviously very different to the Hunger Games trilogy. It felt a lot more raw. It obviously was set in the capital. There was a lot more different points of view, a lot of different interesting characters. District 12 looked quite different to how we've seen it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. I was in suspense. I wanted to read the next chapter. There were things I didn't see coming, real visual, visceral moments, just like the Hunger Games is known to do. And I liked a lot of the dark undertones, because we know President Snow is going to become a dick. So you're waiting and you're watching and you're seeing, okay, well, how did it come? And you kind of slowly see the descent and you kind of wait for it to break, and there's lots of interesting things to learn. It was a fun, entertaining story, and the ending doesn't even solve all your questions. In fact, there's a lot more. There's a lot of ambiguity in the end. There's a lot of, okay, well, did that happen? How did that, like, we don't know if that person's okay. The Snow's in the future. Okay, so how did he ascend to presidency? We don't see any of that. That's interesting in the future, because I'd like to see that. I could imagine this series continuing on, and I wouldn't be mad at it. I'd be happy to keep reading, honestly. And yeah, not as good as the original trilogy, but it doesn't, that's the thing with recontinuations, trilogies or series, it doesn't have to somehow surpass or be on par or go back to the glory days. There's something good about just taking a new spin, trying something new that has the same heart as the original. That's exactly what I wanted, and that's exactly what I got. So I really enjoyed this book, and if any of you have read this book, I'd love to chat with you about it and talk specifics, because there's so many little details I'd love to talk about, and I can't wait to discuss it. I know a few of my friends and family in real life have read this, because obviously I'm a big book nerd, but this book goes into kind of the mainstream, like my mother-in-law. I can go talk to her about it. The second book I read for the reading rush was the autobiography of Malcolm X by Malcolm X, Alex Haley, Joe Morton was the other one. There's a lot of people that made this autobiography happen, and especially the audiobook version, and I really enjoyed it. I don't read autobiographies enough, and whenever I do, I love them, so I need to pick them up more, and this one was a great one to start. As I said in my vlog, I knew the history, like I knew what Malcolm X did, I knew a lot of the black history involved with Malcolm X. I didn't know Malcolm X's story. His childhood was really interesting. I didn't know all the stuff about his early life and the prison, and I didn't know how big of a Muslim he was. He is such an advocate in the Islam community, and I never knew he was Muslim, like at all. How come that never has come up? It seemed like such a massive part of his life, like so huge and integral to the man he became and the man he was when he died, that I'm so surprised that that's not common knowledge, or maybe I'm just stupid. Either way, it was really fun to listen to. I really enjoyed it. I do love a bit of history, I do love an autobiography, and it helped me get in more black voices and black books, which I've been dying to do, and without money, that's hard. I've got no money, guys. I've been jobless for a while, and through all this Black Lives Matter stuff, I've been desperate to support black voices and LGBT voices and authors in general, and I don't have it. I don't have it to give, which, let's not talk about it. I just wish I could. And when I'm able to, I will. But for now, sensitive topics that I'm not going to touch right now. Let's move on. Anyway, I really enjoyed that autobiography. It was so much fun, and I recommend it. If you haven't listened to it, go find it. You can find the resources for this kind of thing, and it's such an important read, I think, and it was so much fun to listen to. So why the hell not?